Welcome to Kim Talks Resilience, where we share stories of insight and inspiration in life, love, and business with resilient women from around the world. Speaking with authors, entrepreneurs, founders, and coaches to learn their strategies for a more resilient life so we can all build the life we love. I'm your host, Kim Hayden. Alrighty. Welcome back. I'm super excited today because this is going to be a very uncomfortable topic for me because if you've listened to past episodes, you will know that I have this weird relationship around money, and having grown up super poor and always hearing, hearing Kimberly Joe, we don't have money for that, and we can't afford that, and so I have this weird kind of dichotomy in my head. I love numbers. I love knowing, what I need to do in order to get to the next level. And yet when it comes to my own personal bank account, honestly, I don't even have online banking. I don't want to know what is in the bank or not in the bank. So I'm super excited that our next guest is here, Maura Shaftoe, because I think the psychology around money is more important than the actual money. But that's just my perception on this. Like, coming from Kimberly Joe, we don't have any money for that, or going to the grocery store and using food stamps in the States. So, I have a weird relationship. So Maura Shaftoe has been in the financial services world for over 12 years, working in the wealth division of financial institutions for 6 years as an insurance specialist before she started coaching practice based around behavioral cash flow. This is why this is very interesting to me. Maura's dream is to help as many people build financial resiliency as she can. People of any age can learn how to do money like it makes sense and experience the release of guilt and shame so that many can have when it comes to the talking about and the managing of money. Bing, 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 folks. Bing, bing, bing. Helping people to have open conversations about money so they can grow their confidence and peace of mind is a key goal for Maura. So let's get her in here. And welcome to the show, Maura.
Hello. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. I'm really excited to be here. And Kim, you're so enthusiastic. And you really are a champion for so many people growing their businesses and just, building better lives for themselves. So I want to acknowledge you for that.
Oh, thank you, Maura. I appreciate that. Before we get into the meat of what you do, how you do it, why you do it, I want you to give a bit more background as to who is Maura, because I always find that there's a seed for the passion of what people do. There's always a seed within their story. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more of who is Maura, and, opening up in anybody, the 6 people who will watch this video and the 400 people who will download the audio, sharing with you, this is very real. I believe that this is why so many of us that have true wealth creation capabilities fail at creating wealth. And it's because of the psychology we've adopted from our childhood, or we have all sorts of things that I'm really excited about this conversation. So before we dive into that, give me a little bit of who is Maura.
Well, I guess you can't separate me from what I did for many, many years. I was in the car industry for a long time. I went to school for auto mechanics when that really wasn't a thing that women did, and worked in a whole bunch of different areas in the automotive industry. And I remember being interviewed at one time, and somebody said, "Why did you go into this role?" And I said, "Well, because it interests me, and because I can earn the same money that a man can earn if I do the same job." And it's interesting that I had that thought then. And throughout my life, I kind of, bucked up against that a little bit. But I'm now getting back to the point of, you know, being really connected to what do I want money to do for me. I knew it when I was 20, And then life got in the way. So I want to help other people who feel like they're kind of off track. And one of the main reasons I got out of the car industry at the end was I was a new car manager, and I was, approving deals that I know were going to be a struggle for people, $800, $900, $1,000 a month car payments, when I knew that they were putting pressure on themselves elsewhere and they weren't managing their money as well as they could. So that's why I made that shift. And when I found sort of that behavioral finance part of it, that really lit a fire in me.
You know, that's interesting because you just made me think of something. If we I'm writing this down because I'm going to come back to this. Okay. So I want to dive in a little bit. So you saw this, and I totally agree. Like on the whole car thing, like I look at people that have these $2,000 a month car payments. That's what we're looking at now. I mean, I'm looking at my car. I have a little pink Volkswagen Bug, and I look at my car going, okay, I can get another 3 years out of this car because it's
Why not?
I'm like going, I'm not looking to, but I'm not a car person. My middle child is a hardcore car person, so he knows everything. But yeah, I guess you got to pick your poison, I guess.
That's right.
But
That's right.
all right, so let's dive into the understanding of what is behavioral cash flow and how do you apply that?
Yeah, so I really maintain that with money, there's two sides to that money equation. There's the things you have to do with money, right? You've got to earn some, you've got to spend some. There's going to be interest if you're acquiring a debt, interest if you're getting a mortgage. You want to be investing some, saving some, all of those things. So there's like the practical things that we do with our money. And then there's the other side of the equation, which is how we behave around money, the habits that we've developed around money, or the unconscious kind of way that we're handling our money. So I believe that now, because we're so disconnected, we don't get a paycheck. We don't look and say, okay, this is how much I've got going in the bank. It just slides in there in most cases. We're not using cash. I personally use a lot of cash. A lot of people aren't using cash. And so they're just tapping the connection between how you're spending is weaker than I feel it's ever been. And people will say, well, I can look on my app and see what I spent all my money on. Yeah, that's great. You've already spent it. It's the reason why budgets don't work, because we're looking at it. You've already spent it. When you set up a budget at the beginning of the month, then you say, okay, I'm going to spend $20 on coffees. I'm going to go to the movies twice. I'm going to go for dinner, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the month, if you look back, most of us don't, let's be fair. You look back and you're like, oh, I'm over my budget. Okay.
It's fascinating because you just I think there is a disconnect when you're just tapping something versus touching something. They've done studies in universities where they'll take half the group and they have to write all of the notes, and the other half of the group are doing it on their laptop. And then when they do a pop quiz, the half of the group that wrote the notes actually always unilaterally performed higher. Is that the same? Like, is that the same thing with cash? Like, is there a detox you can do around a debit card? Because
Yeah.
what
So
you're
you know
talking
what?
about, my daughter she uses. This sounds like bang on. So, is there a detox?
Yeah. So one of the things that I get my clients to do is take tap off their phone. Take the
Yeah.
tap right off your phone. Take your Amazon app off your phone. Take all of those things that are going to pop up and give you like, the desire to do things that aren't in alignment with what you say you're going to do, because there's a lot of pressure to buy, right? So make it harder. What I always say is increase the friction with which you spend and decrease the friction with which you save and invest. So what does that
Oh.
mean? That means we're automating the things that we want to go into our savings and investments, our emergency fund, our holiday fund. We're just automating that. gets looked after. And then when we have to spend money, we're actually like, I get people to separate, they have a spendable account, and that's what they spend out of every week. So they're transferring money into that account. And that's connected to a debit card. But their main debit card for their main, where all their money goes, that doesn't come with them out into the real world.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
they're separating what they're spending.
Yeah,
And yeah, go ahead.
we did a whole exercise on our family for 1 year back. I think this is like 15 years ago, where everything was in cash and we had literally an accordion portfolio. So I knew exactly what I was spending on money. I was, this is back, actually it was back in the '07 crash. So exactly where everything was at. And man, that really kind of changed the whole, like I'm it still from that experience, I'm still far more apt to track what am I spending all my money on. Plus, I don't have any ability on my phone to spend money.
Well, there you go, right?
Oh, I don't know how to. This is so bad. It's like it's a psychological block for me.
Right, but it's a psychological block that you've chosen to use in your favor.
It does work in my favor. Yeah.
It works
Because
in your favor.
I don't buy off of Amazon unless it's intentionally. And then I go to my son. I mean, all these poor guys are going, this is the worst woman to have on our mailing list, because like I did order something from Temu, that Temu company. Okay, guys, I'm being transparent here. I did order something from Temu. I will tell you, they have the most aggressive campaign for texting and email. And if my phone was connected, if my banking was connected to my phone, I wouldn't know where any of the money went. And it's not because I need any of that stuff, right? It's because their dopamine psychological proven text that's coming to me. Congratulations, you won. We appreciate you. Everybody wants nice words. It's sad that it's coming through a text. So what are ways, so knowing that there are these very sophisticated campaigns going on between text and email, and they're all coming right to our phone all the time, right? What are some strategies that you give your clients to navigate almost like a gambler's addiction around?
Yeah, so I mean, shopping can be something that gets out of control pretty quickly, right? Yeah. And I don't, when we've set up a guideline and I've looked at their income and I've looked at their assets, their debt, their proximity to retirement, we've determined their cash flow, what's available for them to spend, I let them go spend that. I'm never saying don't buy coffee, don't buy a pair of shoes, don't, as long as you've got all the other things working, you get to choose. And that's the difference. So if you get a text from Temu, like I would just delete myself right off of that platform, really.
Yeah.
But if you did, you could then go to your bank account and say, okay, well, I've got $75 to last me till Friday. Can I make this purchase?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's tomorrow. I can make this purchase, right? So that's what it is. It's giving people back the choice of what they're spending their money on because they've looked after everything else. And it's freeing because they're not having to nail themselves down to a very restrictive budget, right?
Exactly. That's like dietitians, when you need to lose 30 pounds, they say, okay, you have 1,200 calories in the day. How do you choose to spend those calories? These calories work better for you. These calories do not work so good for you, but you got 1,200 calories.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
And we all know that with a diet, a long-term diet isn't going to last.
It's right? A lifestyle.
It's the lifestyle. So that's what I teach. It's like, I want people to turn their relationship with money around so they're not feeling that as if they're on their back foot all the time. They're feeling as if, okay, I know what I've got coming in. I know what I want it to do for me. I know what I'm trying to build. And even when we're planning for the future, like we're not, as humans, we're really not good at imagining our future selves, right? So we hear that a lot, but what does that actually mean? Well, it's instant gratification. There's social proof we want to belong. There's all of those pressures for us as humans that kind of get in the way. And it doesn't matter whether it's money or, I'm just going to stop and make this point. One of the things that talking about money is still really taboo, right? So I talk about money a lot, and I'm in the financial world. So you would hope that I'm going to be comfortable about it. And what I try to remind all of my peers is that we talk about money all the time, so it's easy for us, but it's not easy for everybody. And it's still considered, people would rather talk about death, addiction, extramarital affairs than they would like to talk about money. So it's clearly a thing, right? And there's a lot of judgment around money. There's a lot of guilt and shame. And I find that when I give people another access, they're a little more forgiving. So one thing is if someone's coaching with me, I'm saying, hey, the time for berating yourself is done because this is where we are now and you're making some changes. But when I'm coming up against people who say, why can't they just figure it out? How can they be in such a bad situation? Don't they understand how debt works? Why can't they stick to a budget? All of those sort of judgy kind of things, which means that then people aren't going to want to talk about their situation because they already feel like up against it. When I say to them, money is just the thing for them. Like some of us struggle with eating right and exercising, but there's all that information out there, yet why aren't we doing it? Some of us struggle in relationship. Okay, so money is just the way that particular relationship that you're wanting to repair and get working for you, that's just the way it's turning up for you. Right?
Yeah, no, I totally I mean number one cited reason for divorce is money, and number two is family, and family costs money. So children, right? So number one is money, and number two is children, and both of these are at the end
There's
of the
no
day. Yeah.
in our world economy, in this life we're living now, we need money.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm sure there's a few people who want to do the free man thing and live off the land and whatever, but at the end of the day, that's just not how economy works. And when and the economy has to work because we will all, hopefully, we all are given the gift of being 80, 85 at some point in time. And that requires a younger economy, a more vibrant, the younger people so that we can care for the seniors. Um, it's, I always like to ask, a story of resilience. Building a business is not easy. Um, Building something from a point of passion can be even harder. Like it's one thing when you go and you buy a franchise. So it already has the playbook, it has the structure, it has all of that. You just have to follow the formula. But when you're building something from scratch, uh, like a coaching service, and it's in such a sensitive topic, I mean, it can't be easy. I mean, has it been easy for you?
No, it hasn't been easy. And if you'd seen the conversation I had with one of my good friends this week, it was like, whew. It's really interesting because we probably need behavioral cash flow and intervention in how we're handling our money more than in the last 10 years. And yet it's difficult. It's a difficult conversation for people to start. What I try to do is always have real conversations about money. So the way that I am here is the way that really I'm going to present. So for me, building out my social network on LinkedIn, writing a newsletter, doing some video, doing some audio, doing some posts, so that if somebody lands on that and they read it, they're like, oh, she's basically she's the same person every time she posts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's helping me. Um, in terms of even when somebody coaches with me and they're like, oh, I'd really like my daughter to go through this. And then they're like, but we don't talk about money. So it is a hurdle. And sometimes I do feel like I do have other things. I am an insurance planner also. So I do that also. But this thing that I'm doing with cash flow and with how people think about money and how they act about money, for me, that's like, I just want people to get that. And so I try to push through whenever it feels hard.
Would you be open to sharing a moment of resiliency that we wouldn't be having this conversation if you had not pushed through? And how did you push through?
In particular with this business.
Anything, anything.
Oh,
It could
anything.
be you could be your 12-year-old self and you started scooping ice cream. It could be anything.
Well, I think one of the biggest changing moments in my life was I was in a relationship with a gentleman, and there was an unplanned pregnancy. And I decided I was going to, in fact, I had a conversation about that when we first started seeing each other. I was, 32 years old. And I decided to, you know, go through with that pregnancy. And I did that on my own. And there was never any money paid. There was never any acknowledgement. There was never any of that. And I have a wonderful son who's turning 29 years old. And what I will say about that is, I was a decent person before I had my son. But having a child made me so much more aware of how we're all connected, right?
Oh, I absolutely agree. I've seen people um like my sister Nicole, uh incredibly well educated, smart, beautiful woman. She didn't have a child till she was 40, and it was a very conscious decision for her to have a child. And to watch her blossom, because she was already wicked cool and smart and beautiful before this child. But watching this deeper layer of empathy and passion for the future, like she really holds her career and what she's doing within her career at such a focus, because she knows that she's building a future that is compassionate, caring, sharing for her daughter.
Right.
And I would agree. And you know what? That has huge financial ramifications. I was a single mom with my oldest, and to be both parent and financially 100% liable for this little tiny human being. That's pretty scary. That can be pretty scary. And I want every mother out there to know, and father, that there are fathers out there who are raising children on their own. I want you to know that, oh, we see you. We see you. We value you because we know the hard work you're doing on a daily.
Yeah, I remember my son coming back from school one day, and he said, they told me at school they're teaching this thing at school, and they're saying that kids from single parent families are more likely to be in trouble and la la la. And he said, you know what? My life is nothing like anything they're describing. So good job, Mom.
That's awesome. That's awesome. If you're to recommend a book to your clients, what would that book be?
Man's Search for Meaning is one that I have on my bedside table. I do read it every couple of years, by Viktor Frankl.
Okay.
Written, he was a Holocaust survivor. Um, and just some of his comments about how to turn up are very powerful. Like how, one of the things that he does say is that the best people didn't come out of Auschwitz because they were too kind and too giving. And so it's all about, like, how do you turn up as your best self?
How do you turn up? So, and how do you feel that that book can help influence people's mindset around, I guess, the shame or the worth, the understanding of their cash flow?
Yeah, so I would say, here's what I would say about money. I would say money, we give money a lot of power. And money is just a tool. That's all it is. That's all it is. Before they had the barter system, before they had little chunks of gold, before they had all of that, they were keeping track of who owed who what, you know? And it's always been this sort of almost a weapon, used as a weapon. And so if you turn that relationship around and you say, how am I going to use money as a tool in my own life?
Yeah.
Right? And to do that, you need to know where you should spend some time on your goals and values. And that's why reading a book like Man's Search for Meaning isn't going to kind of show you what your cash flow should be like, but it will show you how you could consider being a human being.
Ah, I would agree. One of the things I've talked about on a quite, and I'm fairly transparent on this. I don't, it's challenging for me to grasp that in the last 50 years, the quote unquote American dream, Canadian dream, has shifted from having a solid 3-bedroom house and potlucks and family connectivity, and it's now the American dream is, I want to own a jet. I want, a $250,000 car. I want, that's now the American dream. And I want, 3 different vacation homes, and it's really, it's an interesting time that we're in, because then we have the, the pushback to that, where we're seeing this expanse of young nomadic professionals. So these digital nomads, and they really want to live an experiential life versus an expensive life.
Right. So let's just address that experiential versus expensive. There's even a lot of judgment around, oh, they want to have a nice car, or they want to have a big house, or they want to have a whatever, like they're so trapped in the material world. Well, we are in the material world, and as long as that person can afford that and still meet all their other commitments, then there's really nothing wrong with the way that they're experiencing life, right? And then there are the people who say you should only go for experiences. And I think we're discounting the fact that, let's say somebody wants to buy that fantastic sports car as a culmination of some success point they've reached. And they imagine that they're going to be driving through the mountains in it. And that's the experience they're looking for.
Ah, I see the
Right?
connection. I see the
Right?
connection.
And so it's not a question. Oh, sorry. It's not a question of, is one better than the other? It's a question of what's better for me, and am I meeting all my other commitments? Am I doing the things that I've got to do to make my life work? Right?
Ah, that is, thank you, Maura. That was a really, yeah, because that is on, from a host seat, those 2 messages are always coming at us, because people are operating from one or the other. And I don't think I had actually had somebody as eloquently bring those 2 messages together, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think it's really one of the biggest things for being able to manage your own financial life is to stop comparing yourself to other
yeah,
people.
yeah, social
Because you have
media, gotta
no
love it.
idea. You've
Yeah.
got no idea what's going on.
So, where can people find you, follow you, and do you have any resources, anything that you can share?
Yes. So I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn. That's where I post 3 to 4 times a week. You're going to find some, I talk about money and emotions a lot. I'll ask some money questions and have people, I just did a whole series where I had, I don't know, 30 questions, and I asked one question a week. And, like, what do you think about money? Do you have family conversations? Are there any financial products you avoid? Do you know why you avoid them? Right? So things like that. So I post on LinkedIn a lot, Instagram not as much. You can always track me through do money like it makes sense.ca, and there are access to some resources there. And I am always available for a 30-minute consult, and you can book that right off my LinkedIn page. And I guarantee you will have a different conversation about money.
So your resource that's on your website, I did see that. You have a downloadable. What is that?
Well, there are several, because that probably
Okay.
takes you. Yeah, there's probably several. So I have another site called Gumroad, which is linked to Do Money Like It Makes Sense. It's also on my LinkedIn page. And there are things like the 1 month no spend challenge. So you could do that with your family, right? That's just a little downloadable sheet. There's a wealth goal setting with a wealth mindset workbook that I worked on, because when you're goal setting, you have to know the numbers and what's the thought behind the numbers. Like, what's driving you? Like, so always looking at those two sides, the numbers, and then how do I feel about this? How do I support myself here? Even looking at things like who's in your group. I did a few sessions on getting ready for mortgage renewals, because so many people are struggling with that. So there's a downloadable workbook there too. So quite a few resources.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And LinkedIn, folks, is Maura Shaftoe, and that's MauraShaftoe. Okay. So, and I love LinkedIn also. LinkedIn, there's just less drama on LinkedIn.
There, I do like LinkedIn. I've met some great people there, and met them in real life. People that I connect to, regularly, ask input from, provide input to. It's a great community, I find.
So I always like to close the show on a quote, like what inspires you, what's something that's stuck with you over the years, what's something that you share with clients. It can be anything, but we know that life can get hard. It can get scary, especially when people are renewing their mortgages and their mortgages had gone up $800 a month, or they're going through a big life change, or our 40-year-olds, they call it the 40-70. So all the 40-year-olds are caring for their 70-year-old parents, and there's so much stress and strain out there. And sometimes it's really hard to dig into our own. So what is something that you would share if somebody's having
It
a
was
challenging
interesting.
day?
Yeah, when it was interesting when you were saying, what's a quote that resonates with you? And I couldn't think of one automatically. And then I turned around and I realized that the one that I come back to all the time was sitting right behind me. And I'm going to pick it up the floor right now and read it to you. So, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. That's Winston Churchill.
Man, he had some good ones, eh?
Didn't he? And it's
Oh,
true. Like,
yeah.
so here's a thing that people should be aware of. Sometimes when we become successful, we let our guards down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really, it's a time to sort of
Shore it up.
build momentum,
Yeah.
keep moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
And failure, you know what? I fail every day.
Every day. Every day. You got
Every
to
day.
fail 99 times to get it right once. And that's take a look at babies. If they stopped trying to walk on the very first time they stood up and banged their hand on your coffee table, we would have a bunch of people. It'd be Wally. Everybody'd be on a floating lawn chair. And
It's
we
true,
don't
right?
want that, folks.
Yeah,
Mermaids
it's
covet
true.
legs.
I think the whole point of your podcast as resilience, I think resilience is resilience, building your resilience muscle will get you through so many things.
Yeah, and just remember, folks, this too shall pass, but the person who puts the plan in place and follows a formula will be the person who wins. It doesn't matter if it's, that whole hare and tortoise thing, right? It doesn't matter if you feel like everybody's in front of you. It's literally consistency and understanding that you're on the right path. And that's, I think, so important. Don't let somebody on Instagram. Yeah. Get away from the social media, maybe detox from social media for a few weeks, but you are enough. I promise you this. I'm looking right at you. You are enough. You can do anything you want to do. And I truly do believe that. I believe that I'm living proof every day that I wake up and I choose to get out of bed and do it again and do it again and keep working. And every day, like Maura said, I fail every day. I never complete my to-do list. That's probably something I should be looking at. But I never complete everything on my to-do list. But I do complete it within a week. Right? Sometimes I have to shift things around. I reprioritize. But having that plan, and I think that's the big thing, right, Maura? Having the plan, knowing the formula.
Yeah.
Have the plan,
100%.
know the formula. And as a former mechanic, and probably still knows way more about cars than my husband does, Maura, thank you for driving home all the things we should be doing. I've had that sitting on my paper. I had to do it, folks, because I'm punny like that. All righty. Maura, any final words you'd like to share with the audience?
You have a relationship with money. It's the longest relationship you're ever going to have. Make it a good one.
All righty, folks. Make it a good one. On that, until next time, you know what? You're worth it. Be kind to yourself. Thank you for joining us here today at Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, and I'd love to invite you to our resilient community at resilientgift.com. That's resilientgift.com, and we'll send you our magazine and tickets for upcoming events and all sorts of cool things we do here. So be sure to keep watching, and you know what? Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, because we all know that sharing is caring.